You know, the best, I wish we were in the classroom. I'm going to have you guys work together on this and then do this together as a class. But let's think about it. But we're going to try this the best I can, the best we can. I think I think you'll be able to figure this out. It's not too bad. So what I have here is we have some tiles, algebra tiles, and we have the equals. So we want us to write the equation modeled for the algebra tiles here. Well, let's see. I'm going to write, I see an x squared, right? I see x squared, so I'm going to write x squared. And then I see 4x's, so plus 4x. And doesn't that equal -2 because they're shaded in? So then what they say is in this exploration, they say we want to complete this square. We want to fill in this square. So what they did is they added 4 in here, and then on this side they also added in 4. So why do they have to add in the 4 tiles over here and not just leave it over here? Well, I'm hoping you're thinking what you do to one side of the equation, you got to do to the other side of the equation to keep it balanced. So I know Mrs. Sutherland did that, and we also did that in an early part of this year. We just haven't really talked about it that way in a while. So we had to keep the equation balanced, so we added in the 4 into each side. Okay, so now, so that's why they did that. And then, so now we want to use algebra tiles to factor the left-hand side and simplify the right-hand side. Well, let's see. Is there another way you can write this? Oh yeah. The simplified. Yeah, that's where we're going with this. So here, let me fill in. Let me do black here. Let me undo this. Undo. Let's do black. So I'm gonna fill in the 4 over here, and what I'm gonna do over here. Then I'm just gonna write 2, right? Because -2 plus 4 is 2. So I'm just gonna do that. But this factors to what? This factors to. Can I just do this without the tiles? Can we just write that as x plus 2 and x plus 2? So my equation is this. Now where the person who developed these materials said, is there another way you can write this? Well, I could write it as x plus 2 times x plus 2 equals 2. We could also write it as x plus 2 squared equals 2. And now do you see why we're saying inverse operations? Because that's what we were just doing. Well, for me, that's what I just got done doing with that video. It might have been a while for you. So I'm gonna take the square root of both sides of this equation. That's the inverse operation piece. And that's going to give me x plus 2 equals. Now I'm going to write this as negative square root of 2, because remember when we take the square root, we have a negative. And then x plus 2 equals positive square root of 2 for the plus and the minus. And then I'll subtract 2 from both sides of this equation. So that gives me -2 minus the square root of 2. And x equals -2 plus the square root of 2. And those are the two solutions. And there's some decimal form, right? We don't really know what those decimal forms are without using a calculator. But these are my two solutions, and they aren't nice, neat numbers. I could not have factored those. I could not have factored them. So that tells me that they're decimal numbers. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going with this completing the square, adding tiles in to make the square. To make this be a square, we're completing it. Square, right? Well, what am I doing? Root. Okay, so in this next page of the handout, I'm sorry I don't have these for you for on paper form yet. Maybe by the time you get to this, we'll be back in the building and I can send you some these papers. Not that you need them, but it would make it easier. So we need to do another set of questions here, and this one is the same question. And what they're asking us to do is write the equation modeled by what we see in here. So I'm seeing an x squared plus a 6x equals -5. Then they're asking me to complete the square. So what they're saying is I need to fill in some squares here to make this be a square. Well, I'm seeing that I have to fill in 9, right? I'm seeing that I have to fill in 9 here. I'm going to be lazy and fill in 9 squares. And because I've got to do what I do to one side of the equation, I've got to do to the other. So I'm going to fill in 9 squares over here. So what did I just do? I just wrote here. I'm gonna cheat here. I'm gonna go plus 9 plus plus 9 here. Why did they do that? Plus 9 here. So I added 9 to both sides. So that leaves me x squared. So if I clean this up a little bit, I see x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 4. So now, before we jump into the real algebra behind this, let's take a look at the algebra tiles. So these factors to x plus 3 and x plus 3. Do you see how? Do I want to show you this yet? Do you see how the square root of x squared is x? The square root of 9 is 3. This will always happen, and this is why we complete the square. So we can always think of this as x plus 3 times x plus 3, or x plus 3 squared equals 4. And then take the square root of both sides. It leaves me x plus 3 equals negative 2, because remember when I take a square root, I have the positive and the negative. And x plus 3 equals positive 2. And then I'll subtract 3. That leaves me x equals negative 5. Subtract 3, x equals negative 1. So that are the two solutions, this quadratic equation. One thing that I'm going to comment on before I do much more is sometimes I'll try to factor an equation that doesn't work. So I use another method. When I come down, if they're integer answers like this, I kind of do a head slap and think, oh, I just didn't see it. Factoring was so much easier. It happens. So, and sometimes we don't see it. We'll do a little more work than we need to. So let's go do some more of these. So for the first part, they want us to do build the algebra tiles, complete the square physically, and then do the factoring and the math. So if you want, you can go out and do this by hand, by drawing. You can go out and use that applet we did before we did the algebra tiles. And just try. I don't care if you stop the video, try them all. Stop the video, try the one. Just let the video run and watch me do it, which sounds kind of boring to me, but try it. And I've got these. I did the algebra tiles for these, and I'll walk you through it. So I want you to stop it, try this first one, and see how far you get. You can always come back and watch a video. You're learning how to do this. So here's what I did with the algebra tiles. I said I had the x squared. There's my x squared. I had the negative 2x. And I arranged these. I knew I wanted to build a square. So instead of putting them like both up here, I decided to do this and playing it smart. And so here's what it's equal to, right? So let's complete the square now. I think what'll help us to do this is to actually write down the dimensions of this algebra tile, right? And negative 1 times negative 1 would be a positive 1. So that would fill that in. And then, because I didn't know whether to use a negative or a positive, but this helped me do that. So then, since I added 1 here, I'll add a positive 1 here. So doesn't that give me x? So doesn't that give me x minus 1 times x minus 1, or x minus 1 squared equals 2? Take the square root. X minus 1 equals negative square root of 2. X minus 1 equals positive square root of 2. And then we're going to add 1 to both sides. So x equals 1 minus root 2. X equals 1 plus root 2. And that's the solution to this algebra tile problem, or this quadratic equation. So while I'm cleaning up this board, why don't you go ahead and try this next problem. Try to set it up and do it yourself. Then come back and watch this. Okay, so here's the next one in algebra tiles, and I see This is an x minus 2, and this is an x minus 2. And I know minus 2 times minus 2 is positive 4. So to complete this square, I'm going to add in a positive 4. I'm going to add in a positive 4 over here. So what does that give me for an equation? That's going to give me x minus 2 times x minus 2, or x minus 2 squared, equals 3. So now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. X minus 2 equals negative square root of 3. X minus 2 equals positive square root of 3. Add 2 to both sides. 2 minus the square root of 3. And x equals 2 plus the square root of 3. And those are the two solutions to that quadratic equation. So let's set up an algebra tile for this last one. So everything we've looked at up until now has a number on the right-hand side. They don't have 0 on that. Or, I mean, 0 is a number, but it's different, you see. And what I've got is I've got this arrangement of tiles. And one thing I've noticed in this, a positive 3 times a positive 3 certainly isn't equal to a positive 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all these negatives to the other side so it looks more like this. And the way I add the negative 8 to the other side is by adding 8, right? So I've done that. Now, how do I fill in this square? Well, how do I complete this square? See, I have to add in 9 positives. So because I've now added 9 positives here, I'm going to add in 9 positives over here. So that's going to give me x plus 3 by x plus 3. So doesn't that give me x plus 3 times x plus 3, or x plus 3 squared, equals, let's see, 9 plus 8 is 17. So then we'll take the square root of both sides. X plus 3 equals negative square root of 17. X plus 3 equals positive square root of 17. And we'll subtract 3 in both cases. So negative 3 minus the square root of 17. And x equals minus 3 plus the square root of 17. Miserable numbers, but as long as we don't have to do anything else with those, we're good. The wrong button here. Okay, so for this last page, we're going to try to teach you the shortcut here, because you certainly won't have to keep building algebra tiles with this. So for each of the 3, the ones that we had to set everything up with, what they're asking you to find is let's try to come up with the relationship between the number of x tiles and the number of tiles added. So I'm seeing 2 x tiles, right? And how many tiles did I add? I added 1. I'm seeing 4 x tiles. And how many tiles did I add? I had to add 4. Here I had 6 x tiles. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I had to add 9. So what's the relationship? I'll give you a hint. If there were 10 x tiles, I would have to add 25. If there were 8 x tiles, I'd have to add 16. I'm hoping you're seeing, well, I'm going to take 1/2 of the number of x tiles squared. See, half of 1 is 1, square it, we get 1. Half of 4, here, let me get a pointer going here. Half of 4 is 2, square it, we get 4. Half of 3 and 6 is 3, square it, we get 9. Half of 10 is 5, square it, we get 25. Half of 8 would be 4, we square it, we get 16. Okay, so what are we going to have to do here? Here, let me move this off. So we've got x, let me write this a little bigger. X squared plus 6x equals 2. So what do I have to have? We just set up here. I'll be quiet. I want you to think about this for a minute. Maybe stop the video for a minute so we don't just let this run on. And think about, what do I have to add to both sides of this equation in order to complete the square? So hope you see, well, let's see, see, here's b, right? That's the b number. The number of x's, our b number. So we're going to take half of that and square it and add it to both sides. So here I'm going to have to add plus 9, plus 9. Okay, so if you've got that, the rest of this is going to be a piece of cake. Hopefully you see it. It's not too bad. So let's go do, so that's it for this video. Let's go and do some actual completing the square.